I fancy it.
Just as things get cozy.
Any sign of our detectives yet?
Caught off guard, now running for their lives. Murder Rats, Tuesday on NBN.
Good evening, I'm Jodi McKay with a late edition news. Tonight, as many as 500 feared dead after two trains collide in India. Aussie families demand a legal representative at the Swiss canyoning disaster inquiry. And the miracle medical procedure that saved a mother and her unborn child. But first tonight, it's feared as many as 500 people have been killed in a collision between two trains in eastern India in what might prove one of the world's worst rail disasters. Search teams have already pulled more than 200 bodies from the appalling tangle of smashed locomotives and carriages, but have been hampered by the isolated crash site and inadequate rescue equipment.
Such was the force of the collision that at least 12 carriages were crumpled one on top of the other. The impact so great that nearby residents at first thought a bomb had exploded. Rescuers rushed to the remote scene near Gaisel, 500 kilometres north of Calcutta, to begin a desperate search for survivors among the mangled wreckage.
First we saw how many are their lives. From where we were getting the cry noises, we just rushed to that box or that place and we could take out all the live ones.
It's estimated the trains were carrying 2,500 people. Some reports say more than 1,000 have been injured. The Indian Army says many of the victims are soldiers and has denied carrying munitions on a civilian train. Relatives have gathered at stations as far away as New Delhi to wait for news. It's not known what caused the head-on crash, but because the trains were travelling in opposite directions on the same track, a signalling error is suspected. Rail mishaps in India are not uncommon. It has one of the world's largest networks and carries 11 million passengers a day. However, India's rail system is often poorly maintained, and just this year alone, there have already been 6 fatal accidents.
2 heroin users have appeared in court charged over the death of an elderly North Coast woman who suffered a heart attack while being robbed. Police allege the pair immediately went to buy drugs after snatching the dead woman's purse.
The 81-year-old woman had her purse snatched as she was shopping in this supermarket at Gunnellabar yesterday afternoon. She collapsed after chasing the robber outside and died soon after. Today, 2 people appeared in the Lismore local court in relation to her death. 23-year-old Belinda Kate Melville from Jindalee in Queensland faced charges of murder and robbery. 24-year-old Gary Paul Hash was charged with being an accessory to robbery and concealing a serious offence. The court heard Belinda Melville took $150 from the victim's purse before dumping it in a nearby shop. Police say she and Hash then went to nearby Nimbin to buy heroin before being arrested near the Lismore Base Hospital at about 7 o'clock last night. In refusing bail for both, Magistrate Jeff Linden told the court the trauma and drama of the event could have had a nexus or link to the death. Police expect to know the exact cause of death after a post-mortem examination is conducted in Sydney tomorrow. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News, late edition.
Relatives of Australians killed in the Swiss River tragedy are requesting their own legal representation at the criminal inquiry into the 21 deaths. Many have also made a public appearance to thank the Swiss people for their support and sympathy.
Little did they know this photograph would be capturing the final images of life. Fun times in Florence were wiped out in Switzerland just 4 days later when 6 of this group were swept to their deaths. And after a long and heartbreaking journey to Interlaken, the families of the Australian victims today found enough strength to say thanks.
Human beings have an inbuilt sympathy for other people's disasters and horrors.
With the room overflowing with emotion, support from some of those who survived.
We thought it was the safest thing to do for the day.
We weren't daredevils, we just wanted to have fun and
4 guides who led the body rafting expedition continue to be investigated for criminal negligence. A decision on whether they'll be charged is expected by the end of the month. The Australians here have sent a clear message to the Swiss authorities that they must now find the truth behind their suffering.
Will Australia have a legal representative at the inquiry?
It's a decision which now rests with the judge appointed to investigate the tragedy.
Because I would not like to see anyone else go through what we have gone through.
A number of the families intend to remain here for Thursday's memorial service. Others insist their only priority now is to bring home their loved ones from what was meant to be a holiday of a lifetime.
Queensland Police and air safety officers are investigating how a skydiving company failed to notice an experienced parachutist was missing after a group jump 8 days ago. The body of the 39-year-old man was found only yesterday in a Brisbane Valley paddock. Police said today that the death was suicide. The man's chute was still closed and officers found a note in his belongings. Investigators want to know why the skydiving company didn't conduct a head count after a group of 11 left the plane, but only 10 landed safely. Prime Minister Howard has weighed into the Republican debate, saying it won't be the politicians but the Australian people who decide the outcome of November's referendum. However, Mr Howard has refused to be drawn further on the controversy surrounding Employment Minister and Republican Peter Reith, whose decision to campaign against the Yes case for an Australian head of state threatens to undermine the Republicans' cause.
To his critics, it's the ultimate treachery. Peter Reith may be an avowed Republican, but his decision to try to torpedo the November referendum because he won't abide a system in which the President is elected by Parliament has infuriated the mainstream Republican movement.
The convention came up with a model which is being put to the people, and at the 11th hour he's trying to cruel it for everybody else. I think it's a pretty cynical move.
Mr Reith, who will actively campaign for the no vote, says he'd only support a system in which the head of state was directly elected by the people. Ironically, that's left the Republican movement appealing for help from the Prime Minister, an arch-monarchist.
I mean, John Howard should speak up too. John Howard was scathing in his attack on direct election at the Constitutional Convention. He must be horrified to hear what Peter Reith is saying.
But Mr Howard isn't buying into it. He says in the end it won't be the politicians but the voters who'll make the choice.
The Australian people will decide it. And not me, not Mr Reith, not Mr Turnbull, but the Australian people.
Peter Reith's stand also pits him against future leadership rival Peter Costello, who backs the proposed Republican model. Mr Costello has yet to make any comment. Meantime, former Prime Minister Paul Keating has emerged from the shadows, declaring he'd do it all again, despite the high personal price he's paid for his time in public office. Mr Keating says he would have pursued his political career even if he'd known it would cost him his marriage, that he'd face a malicious gossip campaign about his private life and continuing controversy over his business dealings.
In the end, the effort has its own worth and will remain. The country gets its advancement from these changes, and all of these attempts to diminish the changes by diminishing me, I think, will fail.
Sometimes medical ingenuity can be enough to turn a slim chance of survival into survival itself. Doctors in Melbourne have used a new technique to save the lives of a woman and her unborn baby.
Chris Caetano was told by doctors to prepare for the worst. His wife Jane, 6 months pregnant, may have only had hours to live after a mystery viral infection caused her lungs to shut down.
Basically, they didn't like her chances of survival, and her
Emergency treatment by Melbourne doctors saved her life, and usually reserved for heart-lung patients. All the blood was pumped through the machine to be enriched with oxygen.
Her oxygen was dropping rapidly despite her being on 100% oxygen on a ventilator, and I would have thought that without this treatment, within a few hours, she would have been dead.
For 12 days, Chris sat by his wife's bedside as she lay in an induced coma. He recalls how they were given a moment alone before the machine was switched on.
And they put the tube down my throat, and I said, I promised, I'm going to go to sleep now, but I promise I'll come and see you at the other end. Yeah.
It's been 3 weeks since the treatment, with tests showing both mother and unborn baby are doing well.
Appreciate life, appreciate what you got. Because you never know.
Yeah. Just stick together.
Yeah.
Coming up in NBN's late edition news, the Mayor of Coffs Harbour considers another term amid claims of links to the Ku Klux Klan. And Hillary Clinton talks for the first time about her husband's infidelity.
Let's talk Ford Festiva.
And you won't be able to stop. Festiva Trio from a low $13,990 drive away with sporty cloth trim, 4-speaker stereo and air conditioning. How good is that?
Now you're talking, Ford dealers.
Hey, Bo. What do you think of the new tyre displays? Save $60 on a set of Dunlop steel radials. Dunlop Grand Prix saves $70 a set. And a set of Dunlop Le Mans save $80.
I reckon you should move them, Dave.
Where, Bo?
Out there.
Bo's Out There sale. Buy now and pay nothing until 2000. Call 132381 for your nearest Bo Repairs store.
It's happening soon. Newcastle's Craft Alive Craft Show with exhibitors from around Australia. There's something for everyone, from quality craft products to workshops to craft supplies. There's a woodworking demonstration and kids' activities. A great family day out at the Newcastle Showgrounds.
Spears Point RSL Family Club caters for weddings, birthdays and all functions. Menus for all budgets and the cheapest drinks in town. The 5 Islands restaurant is open 7 nights. Family dance competitions, pokey promotions. The Spears Point RSL and the Sulphate Club, real family clubs.
Let's talk Ford Festiva.
And you won't be able to stop. Festiva Trio from a low $13,990 drive away with sporty cloth trim, 4-speaker stereo and air conditioning. How good is that?
Now you're talking, Ford dealers.
G'day. If you want new tyres fitted while you wait, just call 132381. Bo Repairs.
Get back to work, Dave.
Bo's top deals on tyres. Call 132381. That's 132381.
I swear by Almighty God.
Someone wants you dead.
That the evidence I shall give shall be the truth.
50 big ones, whoever takes them out.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
He's the only man who can put away a murderer.
What are you hiding from?
We all step up personal security.
You got a problem there, mate?
In the most intense stingers of all.
I think someone was going to get shot. Rossi could walk.
You seen that movie, Dead Man Walking? You're a dead man, Dad.
Up here on the roof.
Following Water Rats Tuesday on NBN.
Despite being embroiled in allegations of links to white supremacist groups, a Mid-North Coast mayor is thinking of seeking another term. The allegations are beginning to threaten Coffs Harbour's economy, with a conference of Jewish doctors threatening to cancel its booking.
Coffs Harbour's long-serving mayor is on leave of absence from council for another 10 days. Councillor John Smith stepped down from his position more than a week ago to reassess his future after this newspaper article alleged he belonged to a Christian group linked with the Ku Klux Klan.
Had this not occurred, I had no intention of standing for council again. But this has occurred, and that changes the situation. I've got a couple of things have to be fixed before I walk away from local government.
The mayor says he's been unfairly judged and deprived of 2 basic rights, the freedom of religion and the right to be treated as innocent before proven guilty. He sees re-election to council as an opportunity to clear his name.
Very difficult, and particularly for my family. My wife's been quite distraught about this, and that can't go on like that. It has to be put right.
Acting Mayor Keith Rhodes says he'll be meeting with councillors this week to determine an official position on the mayor's future.
I've got to find out from the other councillors as to what their indications are, that maybe I will be able to have discussions with Councillor Smith a bit later in the week and possibly pass on those views to him.
Meanwhile, there are signs the incriminating reports against the mayor are affecting local tourism. A prominent group of Jewish doctors is now reconsidering coming to Coffs Harbour for a national conference in January. Sally McKay, NBN News, late edition.
Problems are continuing to plague work on the new Central Coast home of the North Sydney Bears. After delays due to the weather, industrial disputes and quality control, now flooring in the corporate boxes is having to be replaced. The floor was reportedly damaged. Project managers Abbey Group say flooring came from an outside supplier. The stadium was supposed to be finished in May. It now won't be ready until September. Bad news for farmers with confirmation of a third case of weeds in Australia developing a resistance to herbicides. Farmers are now being urged not to rely too heavily on herbicides.
Weeds can cause havoc for farmers, spreading wildly and overtaking pastures. For most, the solution is simple. A dose of herbicide will do the job. But in some cases, weeds can build up resistance to herbicides and more drastic measures need to be taken. Farmers are being encouraged to keep a close watch on their paddocks for any abnormal growth.
First of all, I guess they need to look for weeds that are not responding to the herbicide treatments that they're putting out there. And this is very obvious because if they do spray and find the weeds are still present in the crop, there's a big problem there.
Noxious Weed Control Manager Jim Cherry says weeds not responding to herbicide treatment could be the result of more than just resistance.
We have other problems that could occur, such as the wrong herbicide, the wrong application rate, the climate situation might have been wrong, such as too hot, too cold.
He says those farmers suspecting resistance should look at a wider range of weed management techniques, including strategic cultivation, varying cropping and using a range of herbicides. The seed from weeds can hang around for several years and, if not detected early, can be detrimental to future cropping regimes.
Yeah, there is going to be increased costs because of other herbicides that have got to be used, and usually they're more expensive herbicides. Quite often they can't grow the crops they'd love to grow, so they've got to change and maybe miss out on some of that prime income that they could expect.
Farmers are being urged to look for early signs of herbicide resistance that can show up in isolated patches in the paddock. Any suspected cases should be reported to the New South Wales Department of Agriculture.
A delicate moving operation on the mid-north coast today as a seaplane took to the streets. The Cessna 172 XP has just undergone 6 months of work to convert it from a conventional plane to a float plane. The journey only covered 1 kilometre. The trees made it a tricky operation. Eventually, it was gingerly lowered into the water, ready to teach new pilots and take people on joy flights. Hillary Clinton, in her most candid remarks yet about the American president's affair with Monica Lewinsky, has described her husband as weak, but also a very good man. Mrs. Clinton says his womanising is a result of emotional abuse as a young boy.
The president and his daughter were in church while the First Lady was in the headlines. She told Talk magazine her husband's affair with Monica Lewinsky was triggered by childhood abuse. His grandmother helped his widowed mother raise him, and he was caught in the middle of bitter arguments. According to Mrs. Clinton, he was so young, barely 4, when he was scarred by abuse. There was terrible conflict between his mother and grandmother.
Obviously, the suggestion that the president was somehow a victim of child abuse is a pretty startling revelation.
Mrs. Clinton knew her husband had affairs with Jennifer Flowers, but said, "I thought this was resolved 10 years ago. I thought he'd conquered it. I thought he understood it, but he did not go deep enough or work hard enough." Pundits believe the First Lady wanted personal issues out in the open before officially launching her bid for the US Senate. Mrs. Clinton insisted the Lewinsky affair was a sin of weakness, not of malice. As for why she hasn't left her husband, Mrs. Clinton said, "I have been with him half my life, and he is a very, very good man." Meanwhile, near Los Angeles today, Monica Lewinsky's car skidded off a freeway and rolled over. The former intern was taken to hospital in a neck brace, but suffered only scrapes and bruises and was released through a back door.
In Thailand, there has been a breakthrough for police investigating the murder of an Australian businessman. They've arrested the man suspected of killing finance auditor Michael Walmsley, who was shot dead in March as he arrived at a sugar factory to investigate the company's massive debts. 3 sugar company executives, including the managing director, are already on trial accused of plotting the murder. In Kosovo, Albanian Muslim extremists are suspected of a bomb attack on a Serbian Orthodox Christian church in Pristina. It was more symbolic than destructive, only minor damage to brickwork. But it reinforces Serbian fears that NATO can't give them proper protection. Hours earlier, British Prime Minister Tony Blair was given a joyous reception by Kosovar Albanians. He promised them a peaceful future, but the religious hatred behind the church bombing will make it a painful protest. Ahead in our late edition news, Kari Webb finally claims her first major golf title and the all-star premiere of Eyes Wide Shut.
Hey, Bo. What do you think of the new tyre displays? Save $60 on a set of Dunlop steel radials. Dunlop Grand Prix saves $70 a set. And a set of Dunlop Le Mans save $80.
I reckon you should move them, Dave.
Where, Bo?
Out there.
Bo's Out There sale. Buy now and pay nothing until 2000. Call 132381 for your nearest Bo Repairs store.
Calcium, lime, rust, hard water minerals that leave scale film and stubborn stains that you just can't scrub away. CLR is the industrial strength liquid that instantly dissolves away those hard water deposits. Watch how quickly CLR dissolves the buildup on this humidifier filter. Everyone has a coffee decanter that's so badly stained, even steel wool won't scrub it out. Just pour in a little CLR, add water, swish and rinse. And look, the decanter is crystal clear again. CLR does the same remarkable job on water pitchers, antique vases, even your glassware. If your coffee maker runs slow and your coffee tastes bitter, just run a little CLR through. You'll have a new coffee maker. If your washing machine causes rust stains on fabrics, run CLR through a wash cycle and clean out the rust buildup. It works just as well in your dishwasher. These same calcium and lime deposits clog your shower heads and make them spray in all directions. Just dip them in CLR. Instantly, they'll spray like new again. CLR instantly wipes away faucet trip rust stains. And it dissolves those impossible stains from your toilet bowl. Watch how quickly it dissolves rust stains from cement and stucco. If CLR can clean a filter this badly clogged with hard water minerals, then you know how fast and easy it will work on lime and calcium deposits throughout your entire home. And CLR is guaranteed to work for you at home as instantly and easily as it does here on TV. Or return it to manufacturer for a pro-rata refund.
The ultimate guide to the perfect holiday. Giveaway Thursday on NBN.
After 2.5 years of production and months of teasing promotional clips, the latest and last Stanley Kubrick movie, Eyes Wide Shut, has finally had its Australian premiere. Gracing the big night were the stars themselves, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
After Star Wars, it's the most hyped movie of the year. The biggest stars Sydney could muster, tearing up the rug to catch a glimpse of Eyes Wide Shut.
I did a lot of nude work, but none of it's actually on screen.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing them on screen, getting their kid off. A remarkable director. Dangerous, perhaps.
What an eyeful it promised to be. It's 2.5 hours of box office pay dirt.
It doesn't really feel as much like a premiere. I was saying to Tom, it feels, because I know almost everyone who's coming tonight.
I get nervous sometimes with so many people, but you come out and you see that they're excited, and it's really wonderful.
You are very, very sure of yourself, aren't you?
No. I'm sure of you.
The movie's about marriage, fidelity, jealousy, that sort of stuff, with a bit of trademark Kubrick weirdness thrown in.
Now, get undressed.
Overseas reviews of Eyes Wide Shut have been mixed. Australian audiences get to make up their own minds after Thursday.
How'd you like to have a little fun?
I'm sorry.
Finance news, the stock market has closed at its lowest level in a month, thanks largely to interest rate fears on Wall Street. The benchmark All Ordinaries down 19.9. Channel 7 stocks shed 2% after Friday's sudden departure of the network's chief executive. PBL is also down. A tough day too for our dollar, down against the US dollar, the pound and the Japanese yen. Sport now, and the drug controversy surrounding Canberra Raiders Brandon Pearson and Ben Kennedy is now being officially investigated by the NRL. In the meantime, both players have been stood down by the club. All those concerned are now calling for a quick resolution.
The futures of Kennedy and Pearson kept club officials locked in discussion for more than 2 hours. There was strong speculation that the meeting would result in both players being expelled from the club.
To sack someone while there's that investigation on would be a denial of national justice, in my view.
Initially, Pearson and Kennedy were in trouble for turning up to training, still suffering the effects of alcohol after a night out in Canberra.
But later reports emerged that they had also taken the designer drug ecstasy. Having signed a 5-year deal with the Newcastle Knights, Kennedy has claimed that the Raiders are out to get him.
Other clubs have done the same thing when their players have been under investigation, and there's no reason in the world why this should be seen as vindictive.
Like all concerned, Newcastle officials are now eagerly awaiting the outcome of the investigation. The Knights' biggest problem at the moment, staying in finals contention, having slipped from 4th spot to 7th.
Yeah, we've got a tough draw. We've got to climb into the 30s, and we're on 29. We've got to, we're desperately needing a win, but it's so tight up there. Everybody that drops a game is in trouble.
A fit Andrew Johns would certainly help, but a persistent groin injury is a concern. Tomorrow, medical staff will decide whether surgery is the only solution. The expected return of winger Darren Albert this weekend following a knee injury is certain to lift the Knights against South Sydney. To the AFL Tribunal, and Richmond's Robert Powell has been suspended for a week for striking Shannon Grant. The Kangaroos midfielder then cops some more punishment, also outed for a match for charging Tigers skipper Matthew Knights.
Kari Webb has been so successful in recent years, few people seem to realise that she hadn't won a major championship in women's golf. That's all changed today, the Australian coming from behind to win the Du Maurier Classic in Canada. Webb's prize money taking her earnings for the year to a record of nearly $2 million.
In the shadow of Calgary's Moose Mountain, Laura Davies had already made her charge. 4 in front of Webb overnight and looking good. Indeed, she led Webb by 3 strokes at the 13th, but by the 14th, the Australian stepped up.
Wow.
Her putting was razor sharp. Birdies at 14, 15, then 16.
She's on the move.
And this at the final hole.
We have a new leader and she's all alone on top.
A final round 66, a deep breath and a short wait. Laura Davies needed to sink this to force a playoff.
Oh.
The beer was soon mixed with victory tears and a bear hug from Mum. But most importantly, it's Kari's first major title. The 2 British Opens she's already won, not considered majors in women's golf.
It feels awesome. I think it'll probably hit me tomorrow when I'm taking the red eye back to Florida. But it's just I just don't have words for it. It's just been a whirlwind 4 years, and I just can't believe it myself.
To Formula One, and Eddie Irvine has overtaken Mika Häkkinen to move to the top of the World Drivers' Championship. Irvine seized the lead with his victory in the German Grand Prix. He beat home Ferrari teammate Mika Salo while Häkkinen crashed out.
Tennis stars Boris Becker and Yevgeny Kafelnikov could smell the fumes before the start, but by the first turn it was all over for Pedro Diniz and Jacques Villeneuve.
Off goes Pedro Diniz!
Mika Häkkinen was 4th, but on lap 26, a blown tyre sent the Finn into a spin.
Mika Häkkinen collides and into the tyres!
David Coulthard was penalised 10 seconds for an infringement, leaving the Ferraris to dominate. Eddie Irvine beating Mika Salo and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. The Irishman now 8 points clear of Häkkinen in the championship. Frentzen now 3rd. Pete Sampras celebrated his return as world #1 with a mighty performance against fellow American Andre Agassi in the Los Angeles Open final.
There it is. Speaking of Air Sampras, he comes right back.
Watched by his ex-wife Brooke Shields, Agassi put up an impressive fight.
Ripping, running forehand.
Before Sampras followed up an impromptu stare exercise with a masterful display to win it with 2 tie-breaks.
I don't believe this point.
And Manchester United has tasted defeat for the first time since December. In the Charity Shield against Arsenal, United led through David Beckham. Kanu equalised with a penalty past Mark Bosnich, before Ray Parlour ended United's 37-match unbeaten run.
They lead Manchester United by 2 goals to 1.
Let's have a look at the weather now. It was a cool day for northern New South Wales with a few showers along the coast of the Northern Rivers and the mid-north coast. A high-pressure system is building over New South Wales and will dominate our weather for the rest of the week. By Wednesday and Thursday, a deeper onshore airflow is expected along the coast and showers will be more widespread. A cold night for the slopes, plains and the tablelands with early frost and fog. A fine day to follow, 18 degrees for Moree, 16 for Tamworth and Inverell and 13 degrees for Armidale. Cloudy periods and a few showers for the northern rivers, around 19 or 20 degrees. A shower or two for the mid-north coast, more likely in the north, around 18 or 19 degrees. And a cold night for the Hunter with early frost and fog, followed by a fine day, 17 degrees for Newcastle and Gosford, 16 for the Valley. Up next, happy days are here again.
Well, come on, Frank. Blow out your candles and make a wish.
Crikey. A real Falcon 1-tonner with a super cab. Unbelievable. What a donk. Nothing like a big V8. Oh, mate, you couldn't have wished for anything more. Unbelievable.
The new Falcon 1-tonner. It's unbelievable.
Many of us have been filled with some degree of confusion with the Kosovars in Singleton. Some of us have been quite angry that our hospitality has been spurned. It is time to take stock. I'm immensely proud of the sacrificial response made by many people. It is time to give thanks of the ethic of the Good Samaritan, who expected nothing in return. May the compassion we show break the cycle of violence and give us compassion and grace.
It's happening soon, Newcastle's Craft Alive Craft Show. 3 big days featuring exhibitors from around Australia. With something for everyone from woodwork and ceramics to fine silverwork, designer clothing, gourmet tastings and much, much more. Attend a workshop or make a purchase from some of the country's finest craft experts. There's children's activities and a $100 craft shopping spree to be won. Don't miss it. It's a great family day out. August 13 to 15 at the Newcastle Showgrounds, Griffiths Roads, Broadmeadows.
If you'd give the world for an out-of-this-world gourmet pizza, then blast off to Blue Water Pizza. 30 varieties of wood-fired gourmet pizzas. BWP, Queen's Wharf and Warners Bay. Pure heaven.
What the world?
An unexpected act of kindness can change someone's day. A whole lot of them can help change the world.
Hi, we're the Warren Brothers, and we're inviting you to be a part of the first National Kindness Week ever in Australia.
Finally tonight, one of television's most loved smash hits is about to be reborn on stage. Happy Days the musical will make its world premiere in Sydney in October with an all-star Australian cast led by Craig McLachlan as the Fonz and Rebecca Gibney as a new character who is Fonzie's arch-rival.
Every woman loves the Fonz. I personally had a bit of a thing for Ralph Malph because he was a dork, but you know.
It's going to be gigantic. You know, times 12.
Jo Beth Taylor is also in the lineup, starring opposite the original Mr. C, Tom Bosley.
Well, you all speak with such a strange accent, I don't understand, but I'm going to get used to it, I'm sure.
The stage is a huge guitar, the song straight from the 50s, and the story we're told is pure Happy Days magic. And that is our late edition news. Our next bulletin at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning in the early news. From us, though, good night.
Meet the future of the nation.
Uh-oh.
It's Lampoon Madness at its best.
What are you people trying to do?
Wednesday on NBN.